This happened around the beginning of September 3 years ago. I believe on a Friday. I don't recall the weather, but at least it wasn't raining and was still hot for the season. I remember I was just wearing a thin French sleeve stretch top to go to his apartment. I got off the subway in a certain Tokyo neighborhood after 9 p.m. While there are busy main roads, it's a lonely area with hardly any shops. The shortest way to his house was to exit the station and take a narrow road parallel to the main road for about 3 minutes. But I stopped by a convenience store a bit out of the way to buy some beer as a gift before entering the back streets. That neighborhood is an old residential area with winding narrow lanes squeezed between high walls and sparse street lighting. Frankly, somewhere I'd rather avoid at night for safety reasons. Partly to distract myself from unease, I called him while walking. "Hey, I just left the station and am headed your way. Got some beer?" I said as I passed under a dim streetlight. Sensing something, I turned to see a human upper body protruding from the top of the high wall right under the streetlight. A young man, leaning about 45 degrees towards me, perfectly upright and staring fixedly ahead. Less than 1 meter away, his pale face and clothes were clearly lit by the streetlight. The wall was much higher than his waistline. At that sharp angle, it's impossible to stay upright without holding on to anything. It was highly unnatural. I screamed. Despite my shout, the man didn't move at all. Not even his eyes. I could hear my boyfriend saying something on the still connected call, which brought me to my senses and I took off running. Sobbing wildly, I ran all the way back to the station entrance, where my trembling self was rescued by my boyfriend. When I explained what happened, he insisted on going back there to check it out himself. I refused for a while but couldn't stand being alone, so I reluctantly followed from a distance. We returned to the streetlight, but there was nothing. Behind the wall where the man had been was a parking lot. To get in that position, he'd have had to stand on something with support from behind. "Don't you think it was just a prank to scare a girl?" my boyfriend said. For a moment I thought, could it have been? Since the sight was so clear, but then I remembered. The man had been wearing a thick, bright orange sweater, a somewhat variegated acrylic-like yarn, large cable knit pattern with shaggy 70s style semi-long hair. It certainly hadn't been warm enough for a sweater that day. Even at night, just a short walk would work up a sweat in the sunny warmth. I burst into tears again and was led away from the spot by my boyfriend. Embarrassingly, for about 6 months after, I kept the TV, radio, and all lights on constantly at home. I've never had hallucinations or delusions before or since then. I've considered possibilities: bikers bundle up in summer, some severe mental condition, but can't find a satisfactory explanation. I'd prefer to believe it was an actual person I saw.